everyone and welcome to my favourite top 10 reads so far of 2017. And this was a really difficult list to compile. I normally find that I've got a weird number, like I've got 7, so I'm either trying to cut down to 5 or I'm trying to find a few books to bump up to 10. But I've read so many fantastic reads this year that I was actually having to cut down quite a few to get to my 10. And I honestly don't know how I'm going to cope at the end of the year when I need to do my final of the year. Like, that's going to be so difficult. I have got my 10 though, and they are in ranking order. So I'm going to start at number 10 with my least favourite of the still amazing books. I mean, these are all 5-star reads. And I'd say the top 5 could have gone in any order really. I was there sort of debating it for a little while before picking, so it was tricky. And my number 1 read, yeah, I'm quite pleased with my choice, I think. It was tough though. It was really tough. So let's get into my top 10. At number 10 we have This Impossible Light by Lily Myers. And I actually uploaded a full book review of this book a couple of days ago, so I'll link that in the description below. And in fact, for almost all of the books in this video, there will be full spoiler-free reviews, so I will link any review videos that I've got also in the description down below for you. But yeah, this was a YA contemporary novel written in verse that talks about sort of eating disorders and depression and family relationships. It was a fantastic read. Highly recommend it. At number 9 we have 5 on Treasure Island by Enid Blyton, and I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and I've probably read this book at some point in my life before, but it's been probably a good 25 years, and I was just in the mood to try out something by Enid Blyton again, so I went for this, and it blew me away just how much I enjoyed this book, and I really want to check out the rest of the series sometime. If you're not aware of what the Famous 5 is, they are sort of a group of children who make this friendship group. Some of them are siblings and the other one is a cousin. And so you've got characters named Julian, Dick, Anne, and then you've got George, who is the cousin, and her beloved dog. And his name is Timmy. And oh, just the adventures and the flashbacks that this book gave me, it was just so special. At number 8, we have the Ersatz Elevator by Lemony Snicket. And this is the 6th book in the series of Unfortunate Events. And there were a few books from that series that I could have put in this spot, but this one's probably my favourite of all. So I went for this one, but this is just such a fantastic series, following the children, the Baudelaire children, who have lost their parents, have lost everything. Everything is just really unfortunate, hence the series name. They are being pursued by a terrible man named Count Olaf, and life is terrible. If you've never read these books, do. If you haven't seen the Netflix series, again, do. I've seen the first series and I absolutely loved it. I can't recommend it enough. I also loved the film that was done back in the day by Jim Carrey. Expose yourself to this story in one way, shape or form if you haven't yet, because it'll just blow your mind with amazingness. Next we have another audiobook, and that is Happy Days by Olly Murs. And this was just his life so far, told by him, and it took you up to his first album, I think it was. So you've got the whole of his X Factor journey several times. I didn't realise he'd actually applied for the X Factor more than once before getting through, but he had. And his X Factor journey once he was obviously on the X Factor, and how things changed his life, and it's just a really insightful read. I highly recommend the audiobook version of it because he reads it to you, so you've just got a few hours there of just Olly Murs in your ear. It's wonderful. For any Olly Murs fan, highly recommend it. Then we have The 100 Lies of Lizzie Lovett by Chelsea Sedoti. This is a young adult contemporary mystery novel, and it was a bit of a love-hate relationship for me with this one, but overall I think I absolutely loved it, hence the 5 stars. But this one has had a very Marmite kind of experience on BookTube. Most people have either loved it or hated it. So basically this follows a girl named Hawthorne as she tries to discover what has happened to a girl she knows named Lizzie Lovett, who has pretty much just disappeared off the face of the earth. That's all you probably need to know beyond that, because again, with these sort of books, the more you learn from just immersing yourself in the story yourself, the better the experience, I believe. Then at number 5, as I said, the top 5 is where my rating of like which book was where got a little bit tricky. But at number 5 we have 3 Wishes by Liane Moriarty. And I love Liane Moriarty. This is the second book I've read of hers now, and I listened to the audiobook for this, which again I just thought was a fantastic experience. I highly recommend the audiobook, or indeed reading her books in physical form. She's just a fantastic writer. It's a contemporary novel about a set of triplets who are all in their early 30s, which was such an easy age for me to identify with, as that is the age I am at too. And their lives were so intriguing. You just get to learn about their lives and you get their different perspectives, different point of views from each sister. They're all so different and quirky in some ways, and their lives are just manic, so drama filled, and I actually just really enjoyed this. I thought it was just a really fun read. At number 4 we have One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus, and this one is a young adult psychological thriller that absolutely blew my mind. You have these 5 kids who are in detention, and for the most part they're not really kids that you would expect to be in detention, and during that detention one of them dies. It comes out that it is suspected murder, and the people who were in that detention, the 4 other kids, are the suspects, and that's all you should know from right now. And it's just, this book was just, I loved this book so much. As I said with all the other ones, there will be a review down below if you want to check that out. I highly recommend this book. Until I'd read some of the other books that are coming up in this list, this would have been my number 1 read of the year. It's just absolutely fantastic. At number 3 we have The Breakdown by B.A. Paris, and this is an adult psychological thriller. There are so many psychological thrillers in this list. It's just been a fantastic psychological thriller year. This is an adult psychological thriller about a woman named Cass who, on her way driving home, is driving home in really, really poor, thundery, stormy weather. Her husband rings her and pleads her to not take the shortcut home in this sort of weather and at that time of night, and to instead just stick to the main road and go the long way. She agrees that of course that's what she'll do. Sorry if the lighting and the angle and everything has changed. My mum came round and I hadn't realised it was that time when I was filming, otherwise I'd have just stopped, because I'm book filming a bunch of videos right now. I'd have just stopped and carried on after she went, which is where we are now. So yeah, I was talking about The Breakdown, wasn't I, and how the character went down the shortcut instead of going the long way around. Anyway, when she's going down that road, she sees a car that is pulled over, and she drives past really slowly, looks through the window. She can barely see because of the rain, but she can see like a woman at the driver's seat. There's no passenger, there's no one else around, and so she pulls up just in front of this car, thinking maybe they need help. She's not willing to get out of her car because, well, 1, it's dangerous, but 2, it's raining really heavily. So she sits there and waits to see whether the woman signals to her that she needs any sort of help, which she doesn't. So she pulls her car forward just a little bit, just to see whether, whether the woman's actually going to try and get her attention. Again, nothing happens, so she drives home. And the next morning she wakes up to find out that that exact woman has been murdered. Now this leads to all sorts of insecurities and issues, not only because obviously she went that way when she shouldn't have done, so she's lying about that to her partner, but then this happened really close to her house, and this makes her so scared that like something like this could happen to her at home even. So she starts sort of getting all psycho nut and making the place like extra secure. And this title has multiple meanings behind it with the breakdown thing, and I don't want to say anything more about it than that because it's just such a fantastic, clever psychological thriller. This book blew me away, and I knew the moment I read it that it would manage to stay in the top 10 of my favourites for this year. Even at the end of the year, this will still be here somewhere in the top 10 because this is a fantastic read. It's a book that I have been pushing on anyone and everyone that I know in real life, making them buy copies, pick it up, read it. If you're watching this and you have been forced to read it by me, I'm really sorry, but you need to read it. if you haven't read it yet, why have you not read it? Like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. It's one of the best psychological thrillers I've ever read. Loved it. So then the book that took second place, again, this book, I nearly put it in first place and I was like, no, actually no. So this is second place, and it's going to take some kicking out of second place, believe you me, and that is Follow Me Back by A.V. Geiger. And this is a very recent read for me. I read it in about 4 hours. It hooked me. I couldn't put it down. It was just what I needed at that moment. It is a YA contemporary thriller mystery novel about a young teenage girl named Tessa who has agoraphobia. And this is through some events that had happened in her past that we don't yet know about. You sort of learn little snippets as you read through the book. And anyway, she doesn't really have an awful lot of contact with people. Her main contact points are her mum, her boyfriend, and her therapist. And she also does have a Twitter account, which has recently blown up to over 30,000 followers because she wrote some fan fiction about a pop star. This pop star, you also get his perspectives in the book. So each chapter sort of alternates perspective, and his perspective enlightens you to the awful situation that some pop stars can find themselves in when they sign up to a specific management within the pop industry. And so it really shows a lack of control on his life. Like, they even try to take over his Twitter at one point. And so this leads to him feeling really rebellious and angry. And so he actually makes a second secret Twitter account. And because he has heard of Tessa, he has heard about the fan fiction, it's caused quite a stir on Twitter, he sends her quite a nasty message pretending to be someone else on Twitter. And they get talking from there. And it's quite a strange friendship that gets built up. And it's a really interesting story, really intriguing, really exciting, fast-paced. You're continually hoping certain things happen and seeing how things pan out, and I just couldn't put this down, and I definitely identified with it a lot, and as a result I can't recommend this book enough. It's getting really dark, by the way. I hope the lighting's not too bad. It's just like, I think it's gonna really chuck it down in a minute. So yeah, that was my pick for number 2. My number 1 pick makes sense that it'd be my number 1 pick because out of all these books, it is the only one that I have bought a hard copy of, and I actually bought the hard copy before I even read it because I knew I was going to love it because it's an auto by author for me, and that is My Not So Perfect Life by Sophie Kinsella, and I pre-ordered the hardback signed edition. So this book is about Katie Brenner, who pretends that her life is absolutely perfect. If you looked at her Instagram, you'd think that she's living the absolute life of amazing wonderfulness in London. That's very far from the truth. She's not doing so well, basically. But you wouldn't know that, and this is just a typical Sophie Kinsella book in the sense of you've got the typical contemporary thing where a love interest comes into it, but the love interest doesn't play quite as big a part in this as perhaps some of her other works. This is more about Katie and her getting to grips with her life and sorting herself out, and also showing how everyone, literally everyone in life, puts on some sort of front and makes their life look better than what it actually is. And you don't need to do that. You really don't. And it teaches you to not take things at face value. I really adored this book. It was such a strong work from Sophie Kinsella. Definitely one of the best books of hers I've ever read. I've not read quite all of her works, but I've read most of them, and this is my favourite hands down among any of them. I loved this book so much. If you've not read this yet, I highly recommend it. So that was my top 10 reads of 2017 so far. I wonder how this will shape up by December. I'm sure My Not So Perfect Life will still be somewhere in the top 3 or 5. Same for the breakdown, and also Follow Me Back. So, what are some of your favourite reads so far this year? Please let me know in the comments down below. I would absolutely love to know. I'd love any recommendations you've got. If you've read books similar to these ones and you think they'd get on with them, let me know in the comments down below too. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe by clicking the image of me just there if you want to see more book reviews and other bookish content from me. And I will see you tomorrow with my review of Follow Me Back. Bye bye!